Hello everyone and welcome to Art Chat. I'm Marge Lee and today we're in Junonia talking with Court Rep Don Adams. Welcome to Art Chat, Don.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, a lot of people know you as a fine photographer, but they may not know that you also have a fine collection of folk art, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today.
Good.
Let's start with this wonderful box. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, in 1910, my great aunt, Ida Houghton, sketched this sort of Art Deco design on this wooden box and then incised it with a wood burning instrument. And as you can see, it's kind of the shape of a lady's face. She also did the interior of it, her H for Houghton. And we have a picture of her taken about the time that she made this box.
And this was quite a popular craft about that time.
It was.
And it still continues as a craft today. There are still
I think
people
it does,
doing
yes.
this. And speaking of wooden craft, we have behind us another form of folk art, and this has a wonderful history as well.
This was made by my great-great-grandfather in Fayston, Vermont. He had a chair factory, and in his idle hours, he did things like game boards. My great-great-grandfather was born in 1817, so this was probably 30 years or so after that he made that.
So Don, this really is an example of art is where you find it. Talk to us about this piece.
Well, this is a piece of driftwood that we picked up on the beach on Sanibel when we were living there, and it looked kind of interesting. So we put this bird on it. The bird was carved by an artist in Maine.
Well, it makes a really wonderful piece.
Kind of a reminder of Sanibel.
Well, it's truly a folk art piece and can really demonstrate what you can do if you just have an eye for art. Don, this is probably my favorite piece in your whole collection. It's this wonderful whirligig, a whirligig being quite a staple of folk art. Talk to us why this is so special.
Well, for many years I collected and rode high bicycles like this, so this was meaningful in that sense. The whirligig, I believe, started when weather vanes started to become automated, and they started adding features that would make them rotate in the wind. In this case, it's the arms that would go around in the wind.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea what the age of this piece is?
This is not terribly old, probably 1980, 80s.
But she's demonstrating the typical costume of a lady who would be riding a bike?
Well, one of the things behind this story is that it was frowned upon for women to ride these bikes and also to wear that kind of outfit. So her very exuberant feature here is kind of counterculture for the time period.
Well, and I know something about your history with these high bikes, and I know that you used to do tricks with them, including flipping around on the handlebars.
Yes, I did.
Maybe that's why you're having knee trouble today.
That's probably right. I'm sure that's right.
Talk to us about this whirligig, because that also talks about your history.
Well, yes, I love automobiles and trucks. This is a little pickup truck, and we also love dogs, and we've got a dog there. In this case, the wind pushes the wheels around.
And you have quite a history with automobiles. That was your career for quite a while.
It was. I was at the Henry Ford Museum and later director of the Automotive Hall of Fame.
So you know whereof you're speaking with automobiles. Well, talk to us now about this very interesting grouping over here. Let's start with that little painting. That is interesting.
This painting is from Ecuador, and we bought it from the artist. She was selling her art on the street. It's very typical Ecuadorian art. It's very detailed and bright colors. And the interesting thing about this, I think, is it is painted on skin. And you can see the skin right here. It was a sheep skin, and you can see some of the tufts of fur from the sheep.
This was an art form that I was not familiar with until you told me about it.
Well, back in the days of a ceramic sewer tile, sewer systems, this was a big business, making sewer tile. And the sewer tile workers, at the end of the day, if they had a little clay left over, would make these figures. In this case, it's a bear.
And people collect this now specifically.
They do, and there are all kinds of things. Some utilitarian things like lamp bases made from sewer tile, and lots of figures of animals, a number of things made from sewer tile.
Well, he's charming, and I want to go now to another work of art that I'm very fond of, and she is called Annabelle. Let's go see Annabelle.
Okay. Well, the artist was Ingrid Diekers. She's from the Netherlands. She's more recently moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she says that this was inspired by her daughter, her daughter's face. And it's a kind of a marionette.
So she really is a working marionette, correct?
Yes, you can move her arms and legs and so on.
And this artist, I believe you said earlier, collects fabrics and
She does. She's doing a lot more fabric art now than she is marionettes.
well, I wish all the audience could be here to see her because the detail is wonderful.
It is.
This is not the only doll in your collection, and we've got one nearby. Let's go look at another doll.
Okay.
Now, what are we looking at here?
This is a doll made by Carla Chahana. She's currently in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she's known for this style of doll.
Before we go to the last work that we're going to talk about, I want to go back into the living room and talk briefly about one of your paintings. Let's go take a look at that. Don, this is an interesting painting because it's an example of naive art. Talk to us about what that term means.
Well, it means that an artist created it who was probably, in this case, totally untrained. He painted just for the fun. He enjoyed, yet we don't know who the artist was. You can see has a very flat perspective. The birds are considerably larger than the people over here. But we thought it was charming and a really good example of American folk art.
There's a little house, I guess,
It's
in the
a house,
background.
yes.
So the more you look at the details, the more interesting it becomes. Really a charming work. Let's go now and take a look at the final work we're going to talk about, which has a wonderful story.
Well, when we moved to Sanibel in 1999, the first church service that we went to, the rector talked about how important it is to let someone who's been influential in your life, let them know that. So one of the people who had been very influential in my life was my first boss. It was when I was working at a prep school in Maine. So I wrote to him and I told him how influential he had been in my life and how important. And so he carved this piece and sent it to me in response to that letter. It was carved from a tree that was located in the first settler's yard, the first settler of that part of Maine, Holton, Maine, way up in Aroostook County.
And Maine, it has a special place in your heart.
Right, yes.
Well, it's a wonderful work. I want to thank you for sharing its story with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing all of the stories of your collection with us. Thank you for being on Art Chat.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us as well. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.